morning to you. Welcome to Sunrise Daily, your dose of daily sunshine. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Ayo Makide. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. Today is the 16th day in the month of December 2024. Counting down. It's less than 10 days now, right?
Well, those who say that they can smell Christmas can smell it in the Hamatan. And we can also see perhaps in the skyline that will show you. I do not know if some of it is going to pop up in this skyline, but Ayo, I understand we're coming to Lagos for you to show us a bit of the coastal highway.
Well, along that highway, Mark, where you know a little bit of Lagos, actually it's about the Lagos-Calabar coastal highway that is being made. But you would also remember that along that coastal highway in Lagos are quite a number of beaches that people are likely to visit. But as at I don't know how long ago, this is what the Lagos-Calabar coastal highway is looking like on the Lagos axis of the road. I'm just trying to imagine what it's like in the other parts of the country between Lagos and Calabar as at this moment. Don't forget that that road is 700 kilometers long to connect Lagos with Calabar in Cross River State. And of course, you know that the highway is going to pass through Ogun State, Ondo State, Delta State, Bayelsa State, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom State. Now that is quite a length of road, and you can just also imagine how much this infrastructure is going to open up the communities that are going to be directly affected by this coastal highway. And it's definitely, I'm just looking forward to what it's going to achieve eventually. Well, part of the goal for this particular infrastructure is to improve connectivity, of course, between the western and southern regions of Nigeria. You know, it doesn't just connect southwest, it connects southwest with south-south and, all of that belt, and of course, you know that somewhere right up there in the south-south is where you will find the southeastern part of the country. The first phase of the project is running from Ahmadu Bello Way to Lekki Phase 1, and we understand it is expected to be completed by sometime in the middle of next year. And after that, of course, every other thing that is going to continue, I guess we're going to continue to see. So, Makwe, yes, this is Lagos, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway in the works, being championed by the federal government, and I also want to believe in partnership with all the states that are going to be concerned.
Indeed, Ayo, I do know that the road has, especially at the Lagos end, has also been somewhat controversial because it's been rerouted. The Minister of Works says it's been rerouted to, cause less damage and also cause less discomfort. But those for whom, the road is going to be passing through where they used to own land are still discomforted by this. I believe that there's still some work, going on to try and smoothen out the rough edges, created by the building of this road. I think that, well, we must all accept that, we cannot make omelette without breaking eggs. We also have to find ways to compensate the chicken that will make the eggs, which we will break to make this beautiful omelette. So I do hope that, the concerns of residents, and one must appreciate the Minister of Works who, has engaged consistently on this road. But even though you can also say, well, he's engaged, but he doesn't look like he's also pushing off efforts for people to actually really bear their minds on how they feel about it. We're hoping that, that work will continue to go on. But we are hoping that beyond all of that controversy, you are able to appreciate the beauty that you see on your screen this morning. It is really serene from up here. And perhaps imagine what it would really be like for us to be able to travel seamlessly from Lagos to Calabar, maybe in the next 2 years, or perhaps even less, if the government of the day is able to keep their promise. But we are optimistic and we'll wait to see, just how that will pan out. But Ayo, You have just said it. It's the Christmas season. People will still find their way to the beaches around this area. I do know that. Well, I have been to a number of the beaches around that particular area, and I can tell you, it's always such a sight. So it's always such a calming sight to see in this season. But I think we can go to the papers now and see what the season is also saying in the papers. Are they being reflected, or is everyone talking about the budget, which the president is expected to present tomorrow? Let's hear what the papers have for us this morning.
We begin the papers this morning with stories from the ECOWAS regional meeting. The Abuja Inquirer, 84 billion naira, $54 million ECOWAS payments. Nigerians in uproar. Find the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper today. Daily Independent, Tinubu asks ECOWAS to emulate Ghana's democratic practice. Nigeria clears 85 billion naira, $54 million ECOWAS levy 19 years after. Regional bloc, OK's exit of Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso outlines conditions to accept countries back into fold. Details on page 29 of the paper this morning. Blueprint newspaper, Nigeria pays 85 billion naira, ECOWAS debt, $54 million levy. Tinubu urges member states to learn from Ghana's election. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso cease to be members January 2025. Daily Times, ECOWAS sets transition period for Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso withdrawal. The details you'll find right in there. The front page of this Nigeria newspaper has Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso presidents absent as ECOWAS leaders meet in Abuja, set to quit in 2025. Reconsider your position, Tinubu tells them, urges sub-regional leaders to learn from Ghana's democracy. Nigeria pays 85 billion naira, $54 million levy. Details on the inside pages of the paper. To other stories, look at the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. High expectations as 32 states budget 22 trillion naira for 2025. Appropriations upped by 31% from 2024's. Governors should prioritize capital expenditure. That's coming from experts. The infographics there is a breakdown of 2025 states' budget proposals. The front page of Vanguard newspaper has FG overshoots 2024 borrowing target by 4 trillion naira. Borrowing 49% above target on 11th month may hit 67% at year end. Domestic borrowing hits 8.9 trillion naira. Analysts list impact on inflation, others. More borrowing crowds out private sector. That's coming from experts. The front page of the Guardian newspaper, Nigeria on fiscal edge has a 4 trillion naira unfunded deficit in 12 months. Stories on page 6, and you have an overview of the 2023 budget performance right there on the front page of the paper. Knox, kudos trail Kemi Badenoch's controversial remark on Nigerian police. Debate intensifies as Nigerians weigh in on ex-British minister's comments. Story you'll find details of on page 21 of the paper today. Nigerian Tribune, cash crunch, POS operators source funds from traders. Increase charges by 150-200%. Not our fault. We no longer get adequate cash from banks, that's according to operators. Development may set back CBN's cashless policy. Details on page 6 of the paper this morning. New Telegraph, how Azman smuggled aircraft to Mahan Air, undermining U.S. sanctions on Iran. And the details of that on page 2. Crew turned off transponder to evade detection. Airline didn't apply for aircraft deregistration for sale. That's according to NCAA. All of that you'll find details of on the inside pages of the paper. Business Day, NGX slams 3,792 sanctions on erring brokers. 37 firms involved in unauthorized share sales. 64 dealing clerks blacklisted as 55 firms, individuals referred to EFCC. The details of that story on the inside pages today. And these are the papers we have for you this morning.
Well, yes, you've seen the front pages of the dailies this morning, as varied as their name is, but you will also find that there is a thread of connection amongst the stories, and sometimes, you know, what some people will consider as an important highlight might not exactly be, you know, another important highlight. So, for instance, you had the ECOWAS summit yesterday, ECOWAS Leaders Summit yesterday, holding here in Abuja, and the different papers had different takes from that particular Leaders Summit. So let's take a look at the front page of this Nigeria now. They have this Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso president absent as ECOWAS leaders meet in Abuja, set to quit in 2025. That's Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, you know, set to quit in 2025. You also have that headline on the front page of Blueprint saying Nigeria pays 85 billion naira ECOWAS debt, $54 million levy. So that is also right there. So different takes for the different dailies. But can you ignore the front page? I mean, the editorial starting right on the front page of this Nigeria. I mean, the video of the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK, Kemi Badenoch, going viral. Snippets here and there, you know, talking about the Nigeria police and her experience, or will I say her relatives' experience, her brother's experience with the Nigeria police. That has got a lot of Nigerians talking about it. And this controversy did not start today. I mean, she's been on and on about her country of origin, so much so that, you know, the vice president had to say last week, ma'am, you might as well, we're very proud of you, but you might as well remove the first name. You know, if you don't want to answer Kemi again, that's fine. And she retorted. She actually had a response in saying that she's not in the business of doing PR for Nigeria. As if that weren't enough, she decided to grant an interview talking about the Nigeria police, and then from there, you know, to other things that Nigerians really care about, such as God, religion, etc. And that has, you know, made the headlines on the front pages this morning, spurring an editorial on the front page of this Nigeria. And they say Kemi Badenoch, bad knocks, and storm in a teacup. Oh, you might want to pick up a copy of this Nigeria and read the editorial yourself and find out perhaps what side you stand on. But essentially, they are saying that this raises, you know, the question of diasporic identities, you know, how the people in diaspora relate to where it is that they come from. They're taking it from that perspective. You know, there's some who say those who feel intense and immense pride. I mean, we have had quite a number of Nigerians living abroad, living in the US, UK, Canada, and all of these other diasporic communities, you know, who always are very proud to associate with Nigeria in spite of her imperfections. And there are those who, well, for lack of a better phrase, are now adept at carrying out dirty laundry and laundering it, so to speak, or trying to, you know, exposing it for the world to see. But I think that it really does, you know, call for an introspection for us to see how it is that we can do better as a people. It's not to say that, you know, those who feel how they feel, they feel how they feel. The question is this all politics for her? Is this how she's, you know, also still trying to, you know, climb the ladder? There are those who have said, look, in times past, she played it different. When she needed the help of Nigerians, she knew what to say. She was home a few times. Well, she's also said, she's not said that she's not Nigerian, but she said she feels more connected to being Yoruba than being Nigerian. It's unclear, you know, what kind of politics we're trying to play there. But you might want to read. Let me not take away from the issue. If you haven't seen the controversy, if you don't know what it is about, you might want to pick up a copy of this Nigeria this morning. I'm sure they'll do a very nice summary for you, and you can decide, where do you stand? If you decide to leave this country today, how would you decide, you know, to talk about your country? How would you decide to treat your country? But Ayo, what exactly is your pick this morning?
Well, my pick is actually Nigerian, if I can put it that way. Just a quick one on that, on your take today, Malkwe. I saw a video of a journalist in the UK, white, being engaged by another journalist in a studio conversation and saying, look, what do you make of her comments and all? And the guy was saying, look, we had a British Indian prime minister who didn't poo-poo his country. So, it was kind of funny, what was the political intention and all of this. But you know what? Everyone, as I think, Mark, what you would often say sometimes, to each his own. So one of the things that I actually find funny, we're very, very proud of Nigeria, every single one of us, but we are not very proud of Nigeria's leaders. So I'm wondering, what's the representation of the Nigeria you're proud of? The average Nigerian? Oh, I don't know, but to each his own. My take this morning, Malkwe, is some kind of conflict on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. On the front page, the lead story talks about high expectations because 32 states of the Federation have a budget of 22 trillion naira in the year ahead. Now, in the Northwest, the budget of all the states, according to the infographics on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper, is 3.78 trillion naira. But then at the bottom of the page, you find this rather troubling detail. Why there is acute malnutrition in Northeast and Northwest. The total budget for the states in the Northeast is 2.38 trillion naira. Add that to 3.78 trillion naira in the Northwest, and then, of course, you know what that is likely to come to. And if you look into the story, of course, you go find out exactly what the issues are saying. Guess what the lead issue is? Low food consumption, not food production. Low food consumption is responsible for acute malnutrition in the Northeast and Northwest of Nigeria, according to the Federal Ministry of Health. And of course, they also talk about poor health behaviors. Well, we have state governments in each state in the Northeast and Northwest. So why we have this situation, I think it is something that everyone would be very much interested in finding solutions and balance to. Because we are talking about the future of our country. We're talking about our capacity to produce food. And I don't know how anyone, we're talking about, Kano the other day, and we're talking about the commercial viability of the city of Kano. We know that we can say the same for Kaduna in the Northwest. And I don't think it's any less significant in other parts of the country. At least I know I have been to Maiduguri once. And I know that they had, at the time, some measure of commercial activity. So it's not because the food is not being produced, according to this report in the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, it is the consumption that is low, both in quantity and in quality. Please pick up this paper and let someone find out exactly what, because both at the state levels and at the local government levels, they have health officials who are supposed to go from house to house to ensure that the people are hale and hearty and healthy. These are the same people that will grow up to go into state houses of assembly, local government houses of legislature, and the National Assembly. And if we have this low food consumption, which is essentially going to result in everything else that is going to reduce the human capital index of the individuals in these states. So please, I hope someone is listening. I will pick up that paper this morning and have conversations with the states. Let's see how we can help our people to do better. So these are the papers we have for you today, and we'll take a short break now. When we return, let's begin our conversations today.
The 66th Ordinary Session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government begins with a group photograph of the leaders of member states led by its chair, President Bola Tinubu, upon their arrival. Shortly after, they go into the hall for the meeting. All member states are present, except, of course, the junta-led heads of government of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, who are conspicuously absent. In his statement, President of the ECOWAS Commission, Omar Torre, commends the leadership of President Tinubu in the bloc and for ensuring Niger keeps up to its financial obligation to ECOWAS.
Nigeria paid 85 billion naira and 54 million US dollars, representing 100% of the 2023 levy and the levy of 2024 up to July 2024.
President Nana Akufo-Addo is making his last appearance at the meeting as the 13th president of Ghana, following the recently held elections in Ghana, which produced a new president in the waiting. His party's gesture in conceding defeat to the opposition is commended by President Tinubu, who enjoins other member states to take a cue.
Your Excellency, President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana, thank you for being who you are. A sincerely committed Democrat who has been a shining example. I therefore invite all of us to give him a standing ovation and more applause.
President Tinubu then calls for more cooperation among ECOWAS members.
As leaders, we are fully aware that security is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Equally, enhancing the living standard of our people is not an aspiration, but an obligation.
After the speeches, members of the media are excused as the meeting goes into a closed-door session for the consideration of the report by the ECOWAS mediation mission led by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal and Faure Gnassingbé of Togo, among other reports. Hours later, the meeting opens with the president of the ECOWAS Commission presenting the communique, which highlights some of the major decisions taken regarding Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger's membership of ECOWAS.
Three countries will officially cease to be members of ECOWAS from 29 January 2025. The authority decides to set the period from 29 January 2025 to 29 July 2025 as a transitional period and to keep ECOWAS doors open to the three countries during the transition period.
The meeting comes to a close with the final remarks by the chair.
I call on all member states to redouble their efforts in ensuring that decision reached here translates into tangible benefits for our citizens.
For more clarifications, the president of the ECOWAS Commission briefs journalists afterwards on the status of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger.
The 29th of January 2025 is the official date, but then the effective date of withdrawal is 29th of July 2025.
ECOWAS has allayed the fears of possible security threats should the three countries finally exit the community, as it assures of fostering cordial relationship with them, especially in the area of trans-border security, to ensure stability in the region. From the banquet hall of the State House, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And that's a summary, essentially, of what transpired yesterday at the State House at that 66th ordinary session of the meeting of heads of state and government of the ECOWAS region, which President Bola Tinubu currently chairs. Well, we're going to be getting a little more from, what transpired yesterday and a decision reached finally on the fate of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And joining us in the studio this morning is Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa, who is the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. Sir, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Malcolm. I'm also very happy to be here.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Let me quickly take this out of the way. This question of Nigeria paying 85 billion naira, ECOWAS debt, 54 million naira, $54 million levy. Are they two separate monies, or they're the same money changed into naira?
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. First and foremost,
yes,
is congratulations to Nigeria.
Congratulations to us.
Yes, to Nigeria, to His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this gesture, which actually spurs other member states also to live up to their commitments to the community by, remitting the community levy to the community for the use for the benefit of our people. What I will say regarding the 85 billion naira and $54 million that Nigeria has paid covered the period of the entire year 2023 and the period from January to July 2024. Which means Nigeria has cleared the entire 2023 arrears and then have moved on to pay half of this year's levy. Why naira and dollars? Is because Nigeria, with an arrangement with ECOWAS, agreed to pay part of the levy in local currency and part of it in naira. So that is why you have naira and then you have, dollars on the, one hand. The percentages, I think that is up to the finance people to calculate. But the arrangement with Nigeria is to pay part of the levy in naira and part in dollars.
Well, I do not know whether I want to raise what it is. A number of dailies were saying about how there's an uproar in Nigeria, but I don't think that would be the business of ECOWAS. Yeah. Well, what I'd like to know is, if there are other countries living up to expectation, or is Nigeria really the one leading the way here?
Yeah, up till, last year and then the beginning of this year, we've had a cash trap. We are cash strapped.
That's
because
ECOWAS.
Yes, at ECOWAS, because much of the community levy still remains with the member states. So that is why this exemplary act by Nigeria is so important. Immediately after that announcement yesterday at the summit, countries started promising that by the end of the year, they will make good their pledges like Cote d'Ivoire, like Ghana. These are the two other major.
Ghana is the one we're interested in. What is the status of Ghana?
Yeah, Ghana has always lived up to expectation, and I think up till last year, Ghana had, sort of fulfilled its commitment. So it is this year that we are looking at. Ghana has paid much of its what it owes. Cote d'Ivoire has promised to pay before the end of the year. So these are the three largest economies in the region, and if they demonstrate this well, to pay, then it spurs the others also to follow suit.
Well, it's not clear whether Senegal too, would be following suit. But I mean, I think that it might be, maybe Nigerians might be a little forgiven if they know that they are ahead of Ghana in that regard.
That's right.
Who knows? But let's, take a look at, the issue which was, I'm sure, is a very serious concern to ECOWAS, which is the issue of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso exiting the region. We've seen that this has been quite a bother for ECOWAS, when coup d'etat happened in these countries, and the stance of ECOWAS, some people said initially it did not quite help. It might have alienated them, but ECOWAS has taken a stance, and that's what it is. And it doesn't seem like all efforts to do some rapprochement with these countries has yielded any fruit. It does appear that they are sticking to their guns and saying they would like to exit. And it does appear that ECOWAS is now opening the door and saying, well, if that's what you want, we are starting the deboarding process. Is this ECOWAS giving up on them, being continued members of this union?
No, not giving up. I think let me, begin from the very start. I think there were missteps on the side of ECOWAS and also on the side of the three countries that have decided to exit. And I think what ECOWAS had done over the last two summits and more is to try to, pull back from the brink. To try to lower the temperature by gestures like lifting almost all sanctions on these countries, for example, and also opening the door for collaboration as far as security and the humanitarian issues are concerned, because our security challenges are more concentrated in those three countries. And if we don't have any way of collaborating, very soon, like we've seen, terrorism will start coming down to the littoral state. So ECOWAS has all that, in view. And that is why the president of Togo, President Faure Gnassingbé, was appointed as a facilitator right from the onset. And at the last summit, the president of Senegal, the newest president, in the region, that is Bassirou Diomaye Faye, was also tasked with the mandate, to engage these countries and to see whether we can narrow our differences and then they will come back to the fold. That is what ECOWAS wishes, because ECOWAS is a community. It's just not an organization per se. It is about populations who are all over the region, living everywhere. So we don't want to take any decision that will negatively impact them. So if you remember, 2 days to the summit, the ministers of, foreign affairs of the three countries held their meetings and then said that their decision to withdraw from ECOWAS was irreversible. But they left the door open, saying that their states were open to receive the populations of other member states, based on our free movement, that we have in the region. So this is like, okay, it was like a preemptive strike, to this. So yesterday, there was a decision by the authority on the matter. And, the fact is we have to look at three stages, of the decision that was taken yesterday. ECOWAS took note of the decision of these countries to withdraw, from the community. That is one. So, which means ECOWAS has de facto accepted that from the 29th of January next year, these three countries cease to become members of the community. That is the first point. The second point is, in the spirit of this community that we want to build, we don't want the divorce to be permanent. So the heads of state have, sort of gone the extra mile to say that despite that decision that they are not members from the 29th, we allow for a transition period of 6 months up to July to make sure that the two facilitators, Presidents Faye and Gnassingbé, continue their dialogue to see whether the three countries will have a change of mind. So that is the second, part of it. The third part is the instruction given to the ECOWAS Commission to already ready our contingency plan, so that if by the end of July, there is nothing, then there will be an emergency meeting of ministers of ECOWAS in order to to review the contingency plan that has been prepared by ECOWAS in terms of ensuring an orderly divorce, with these countries, in terms of, because ECOWAS has got institutions, about 3 of them in Burkina Faso. These countries have got a lot of their population. In Cote d'Ivoire alone, from the 3 countries, we can count up to more than 8 million. 8 million of the citizens of these 3 countries today find themselves in Cote d'Ivoire. Okay, so we have to ensure, that the decisions of their heads of state do not negatively impact them in the spirit, because what we are working toward is to build a community of citizens. And there can be politics at the top level, but the populations of our country, we straddle the region, all over the place. And we want to make sure that if push comes to shove, by the end of July, if we are, going to have a permanent divorce, that there are arrangements that will not negatively impact our populations. But there are, of course, other, issues to be discussed in terms of the citizens of these member states who are staff of ECOWAS today.
Indeed.
Yes, for example, our institutions in the countries, we will have to touch on the free trade, and all that. All the issues, that the regional economic integration has brought about, all these will have to be discussed. In order to see, okay, if we are, sort of divorcing, what are the issues? ECOWAS has got a bank for industry and development, EBID, and these countries owe millions of dollars. And we have to, in terms of support to industrialization, to development in their country. So the thing is, what will be the arrangement? For example, if we part ways. So there are so many,
there's so many parts to it. In all honesty, I mean, even just thinking as an ordinary citizen of Nigeria, carrying around an ECOWAS passport, which we tend to take for granted, we sometimes forget just how much work has been done coming up with that singular passport that can take you to, the countries within the West African region, going to Togo, Benin Republic, Ghana, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire. And I was just wondering, what will happen to the citizens from these countries, and will they have to apply for visas to come to Nigeria, is that what's going to happen? So it's a good thing to know that ECOWAS is actually thinking about it. I mean, even those members of those countries who work within the ECOWAS space as well, who work with the commission itself, it does really, really sound very complex. But tell us and clarify for us, because you say from the 25th of January, they cease to be members. 29th of January, they cease to be members of ECOWAS. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So in other words, they will no longer be members, because then what is the transition period about? Because we would have thought that when you say they cease to, the transition would have been before the final date. Now the final date preceded the transition period.
Yeah, this is an exceptional decision by the authority.
Okay.
And it is about the concern for the unknowns that you just mentioned. Okay, that after the breakup, of the, AES country, the Alliance des Pays du Sahel, that is the des États du Sahel, which is the Alliance of the Sahelian States. If they break away, what will be the impact on all these issues that you've talked about? Next year, ECOWAS will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. 50th anniversary. That is the oldest regional economic community on the continent. Okay, and there have been a lot of achievement in terms of even stabilizing the region. You remember the wars in Liberia, the wars in, the free movement, and then all that. There's a lot that the region can be proud of. Going forward, after 50 years, what do we actually need to do? And the least thing the heads of state want is at that 50th anniversary to have this problem with a number of our member states saying they are withdrawing. because it casts a very negative, image on our regional integration project. And that is what has spurred the heads of state to say that, listen, okay, they say their decision is irreversible. According to Article 91 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty of 1993, member states have to give a notice period of 1 year, 12 months after they've taken their decision before their decision is consummated. Now, the 29th of July, the 29th of January is when, because they made their decision on the 28th of January 2024. Yeah, so 29th of January, 2025, that is when that period expires, according to our own statutes that they all signed up to. Okay, and ECOWAS has gone the extra mile, the heads of state, to say that, listen, yes, you are no longer members of our ECOWAS organization from the 29th, according to our statutes. But given all the threats in the region, given the unforeseen, the impact on population, the impact on free trade, free movement, the impact on ECOWAS assets in those countries, and even the citizens who are working for ECOWAS, let's still continue, seeing whether there will be a change of heart from those three countries. So we've given an extra 6 months for the two facilitators from Senegal and from Togo to continue their engagement with these three member states to see whether really, after deep reflection, they feel that it is in their interest to remain permanently out of ECOWAS, or it is better for them to be in. And one other thing I have to tell you, you can withdraw from ECOWAS, but coming back is not automatic. You will need to apply, and ECOWAS would have to consider your application and all that. If you remember, Mauritania withdrew from ECOWAS in 2000. Later on, in the years 2010, thereabout, Mauritania had to apply to rejoin ECOWAS. And up till today, ECOWAS has not taken a definitive decision on Mauritania coming back. So when ECOWAS was set up in 1975, membership was automatic. All members were there. But once you withdraw, there is a process of rejoining. So it's not automatic. That is why this grace period of 6 months is very critical. Because if they change their mind during this period, then all those rejoining processes are waived. They are not there. So, the heads of state, in their own concerns for our citizens, decided that, okay, let's still give ourselves some time, for us to see whether our differences are bridgeable, whether we can bridge them and we come back as a community again. And that was what decided, prompted the heads of state to say, okay, let's give ourselves another 6 months, even though technically they are not members of ECOWAS, from the 29th of January.
So from the 29th of January, we will stop seeing seats reserved for them, at a meeting like this. The seats will no longer be present because we're no longer expecting them.
That is correct. Yeah, but even with that, like I said, the issue of security is a regional threat. It is something that we have to work with. So it doesn't matter whether they are members of ECOWAS or not, because ECOWAS collaborates with the countries of the Central African Republic. Individual member states have arrangement. In fact, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, through his ministers, including the Chief of Defense Staff and others, have been having bilateral sort of engagements with Niger, because they have a common Boko Haram issue. Yes. And then they have a common cross-border trade issue. Yes. And there is the need, even at that level, to have that. So their withdrawal from ECOWAS does not mean that we cut all relations with them.
Okay. So countries will still have bilateral relations, but not at the level of ECOWAS.
No, not at the level of ECOWAS, yes. You know, but bilateral relations, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sure my colleague Ayo would like to explore that angle of security. Ayo.
Okay.
Well, that and a number of other things, Mark, where, Ambassador, good morning. One of the things that came to me as you spoke is I'm not sure if the issues of governance that were raised by those three countries have been addressed really. So, they raised concerns of, okay, ECOWAS not even paying attention to how the governments that were there before they had to take over had governed the people. Have those issues been discussed at any level by ECOWAS? The reasons for which they wanted to exit ECOWAS?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very pertinent question that you are asking. See, the issue of governance is a very long-term process. ECOWAS has made a strategic choice to go for democracy, the ballot box, as the preferred choice of electing our leaders. And ECOWAS is taken by it. 11 of our member states today go for regular elections. If you see like what happened in Senegal, both in the presidential election and the legislative elections of 24th of November, and most recently the elections in Ghana, the general elections in Ghana, you will agree with me, that despite all the challenges, in fact, the democratic culture is taking root in the region. You do not have that blatant abuse of power because citizen awareness has gone higher and the people are able to monitor their results. That is why in Ghana, before even 40 of the 276 constituencies had been declared, the candidate of the ruling party conceded defeat and congratulated his opponent because both sides have got their own internal calculation that show that the MPP and His Excellency Mamudu Bawumia, there was no pathway for him to win the election, and he conceded, and this is what we are looking at. So the thing is, democracy, for example, may not be the best way to choose leaders, but as we are seeing increasingly, it is also the best way to remove non-performing leaders. And we have seen that in many countries. And it is a process. That is what we are talking, about here. So it is not about, we need actually structural reform within ECOWAS in member states, and then we are on trying to review the supplementary protocol on democracy and good governance of 2001, to ensure, that there is that good governance element of it. It is just not the election. Elections must lead to development, the well-being of the people, and these are the areas we are working on now with all the reform that we are making. But citizens in our country are using the ballot box to change government, and that is the what we all want. You don't need change through the barrel of the gun.
But at the end of the day,
in order to ensure democracy.
At the end of the day, Ambassador, it's he who feels it knows it. And a good number of countries in Africa would probably even be saying the same thing, one way or the other. So I don't know if part of the reforms that you're talking about is some kind of position of ECOWAS to compel or tell any losing side to concede. I don't know if that is something that can happen, because I remember listening to Kamala Harris of the United States of America saying, look, that conceding, making that call is one of the pillars of democracy in the United States of America. It's an unwritten rule, but the president just has to make that call, But again, it depends on whoever is in power. Is there a strategy to ensure that that happens in West Africa, for instance? I know that the president congratulated and asked for the president of Ghana to be celebrated for doing just that. Is there a strategy to ensure that that happens across the region?
Absolutely. And it doesn't begin with the outgoing presidents or defeated president conceding. What ECOWAS is doing is to make sure that the groundwork is done in terms of laying a level playing field for elections. They are transparent, they are inclusive, and they have the confidence of all. If you have observed, in many of these countries, and in Ghana, for example, there was a peace pact that was signed by all the candidates that enjoined them, to concede defeat if they lose the election through the ballot box. But the question, Ayo, is it is the losing or winning of the election. It is how political parties are able to police their vote, and how all the stakeholders, civil society and others, today with social media and other things, before even the electoral management bodies announce results, people have already got those results from their constituencies, because they have observers everywhere. ECOWAS has made it a practice to make sure we deploy sufficient number of observers in order to ensure that we engage with all the stakeholders in the election.
I'm hoping
also
that,
to convince from our own analysis, if a leader is losing, to encourage them to concede. So I'm hoping,
I'm hoping, my apologies, Ambassador, I'm hoping that one way or the other will be able to compel that. But I have to ask you this one question before I hand it back to Malkwe. The map of West Africa is going to change with this exit. I mean, if you see what is coming up on your screen just now, it's something that we just found online, you'll find that, the map of West Africa is going to change. The way it looks is going to be different. For now, I look at what we have right now, this is the way it is going to look. And so how is that going to affect the entire permutation of the West African economic sub-region?
Yes, no, definitely the withdrawal of the 3 members is going to impact our regional economic integration, process, because a lot of protein, meat, and a whole lot of other vegetables actually come from the northern part of our sub-region to the coast, and they also benefit a lot with industrial materials and other things, and most importantly, access to the sea, because those 3 countries are landlocked, and they will need the coastal countries actually to process their exports and import through their port. So it is going to impact everybody. That is number 1. Number 2, territorially, the 3 countries constitute about 54% of the ECOWAS space. That is more than half, of it. And that alone, but population-wise, the rest of ECOWAS, of course, have got far more people. Taking Nigeria alone, its population is several times the population of those 3 countries. So the remainder, if they live on the 25th, is going to, in terms of movement of people, between the north and the south, is also going to be impacted. I was just telling Malkwe earlier on that there are about 8 million people from the diaspora of those 3 countries in Cote d'Ivoire alone. You are not even talking about the other members, how many Nigerians are in Nigeria, and then all that. So that is also going to be one of the impact. But the most critical, impact, Ayo, that I think I can tell you, is about security. Because just from July, up till December, there were about 600 terrorist attacks in the region, leading to about 2,600 fatalities in our region. And majority of those attacks and the fatalities are from the northern part of our community.
Well, Ambassador,
and this terrorism is still descending to the coastal countries. You need collaboration.
In 30 seconds, because we're almost out of time, I want to ask you, I mean, what we could not accomplish in 1 year, because this year was also supposed to be for negotiations. We've now given an extension of 6 months to see how optimistic are you that this 6 months grace period again extended by ECOWAS would actually yield fruit and see them return to the fold?
Yes, Maokwe, if you analyze the political scene, we are hearing less and less anti-ECOWAS rhetoric from the member states of the 3 countries. ECOWAS also has mellowed down in terms of these divisions to allow for mediation to occur. So there has been some progress by lowering tensions and all that. But we never lose hope. We feel that this 6 months and the realities after deep reflection, both sides will come to the conclusion that we need each other. We need each other in the community, and this is what we are looking forward to. You know, that with the help of President Faye and then President Nyasimbe, we are able to continue the dialogue. The dialogue with them behind the scenes is not in the media and other things, and that before 29th of July this year, I think so that we have some positive news for our community citizens.
Fingers crossed then. We certainly wish ECOWAS and the negotiators all the best. Thank you so much for coming to our studios this morning. Ambassador Abdul Fattah Musa is the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. Thank you once more for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Well, we'll take a break now. When on top of the hour, will be Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Please stay with us.
Hello and welcome to the trading week right before the Christmas time, right here in Lagos. Another trading day. It's great to have you join us. Let's get to the top stories that set to in Jeddah. Today, we're expecting inflation numbers. That's for November. The National Bureau of Statistics is supposed to send us that report today. Meanwhile, think tank Financial Derivatives Company is projecting headline inflation to increase by about 0.76% to 34.64%. FDC attributes this increase to seasonal factors and cost pressures, resulting in higher prices compared to the corresponding period in 2023. On its part, the EIU forecasts inflation will peak at 35% in December 2024 and average about 27.7% in 2025. A disinflationary trend is expected in the long term, supported by forex stability, trade policy, and base effects. All right, let's get a check on the Naira now. We see it depreciated by about 2 Naira. 5 kobo, that was for the last trading day, Friday, 1,514 Naira. That level still maintained. NAFEX window, 1,549 Naira, also down 0.13% on Friday. So that big week, the week before last week, we did get a bullish move there from the Naira, but we're still seeing that range play out so far. And talking about the Naira, organized private sector is asking the Central Bank of Nigeria to address the cash scarcity witnessed nationwide, stressing that the country is not developed enough for cashless transactions. Members of the organized private sector pointed out that the scarcity of cash has adversely affected businesses, especially those in the micro, small, and medium enterprises category, as they express fears of an imminent collapse of MSMEs. The body notes that a significant portion of the population still relies heavily on cash for daily transactions. Let's bring us to our first conversation now. Joining us is Mukhtar Mohammed. He's the CEO of Finance with Mukhtar. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Ladi. Good morning.
Yeah, morning. So it's like deja vu here again. We're seeing cash is scarce. We're seeing the ATMs are dusty. How are you seeing this new trend?
Well, I think it's not good for our economy. Like I always say, Ladi, the most vibrant sector in the Nigerian economy is the SME sector, and that sector is largely driven by cash. And that is why you've seen that the CBN policy have not really hit the ground running, because the most vibrant sector, 80% of Nigerian business in the informal sector, which you know that is the key employer of labor in Nigeria, especially in the rural area. I totally agree with the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria that says that it's not yet time for us to just go in fully into cashless. I think we've tried. Most businesses are trying to go cashless thanks to the fintech companies also. But again, we have this infrastructural challenge that I always keep saying about, that the CBN have not even been addressed like it's done in developed nations, when you have common, they share common infrastructure. That is there through the help of CBN, maybe coming in, partnering with the bank to bring a strong backbone, especially at the back end. So we are not seeing this, and again, we are seeing that the CBN is so rigid in their cashless policy. Forget about the statement they say openly. You and I know that this current trend of scarcity of cash is largely driven by CBN policy of trying to reduce liquidity to deal with inflation. And it's comical because, again, you see the CBN say we have about 4-point-something trillion in circulation, and yet where is this money? So I think, and again, they have come out to say this money is not largely with the VIPs, and I think the CBN really need to come hard on the banks, any bank that is fine completely.
Right, and talking about the banks at this point, what would you say, are the consequences at this time? We've heard the CBN issue, warnings at this point, saying that any bank found culpable, also for hawking, the naira, selling the naira to most of these hawkers so that you can get all those clean notes at parties. The central bank is saying they'll fine the banks 150 million. So as it looks now, it's mostly looking like the banks are the ones here keeping the cash from us, going by what the CBN is saying.
I think the CBN like passing the buck always to the bank. That's the truth. They like passing the buck to the bank because the bank seems to be the one that is really available for us to hit on. Ladi, he said Nigeria is not devoid of law. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission said they're going to crack down on abuse of naira, and we have seen that over the time of some ways. I think some months ago, we saw how people were sent to jail for abusing the naira. We saw how people did out of settlement of court to abuse the naira. At that time, it was high, and it's like, well, finally, people were scared of even spraying naira notes in parties. But those mint notes were still in the parties, but they were being done secretly. But after some time, we are back to where we used to be. You see this mint note all over parties again, and there's no any law enforcement agency. I don't think it's in the place of the bank to begin to go after, or the central bank to begin to go after those with mint notes in the party. I think the security agent need to do their own work, especially the Economic and Financial Crime Commission. It's not just for you to go after high-level people. And then you have to do it with everybody. The law must be applicable to everybody. Nobody's above the law. It seems that you target some people and you go after them. No. I think for me, when it comes to implementation, I think the security agents, they have the law. They are the ones to arrest. The CBN does not have power to arrest. The bank does not have power to arrest. The CBN is saying it's going to fine the banks 150 million. But again, you ask yourself, if I come to a bank as a customer and I'm fortunate to be given new mint note because of my relationship with the banks, does that mean that the bank should be culpable if I decide to go and give it to people in parties? I think this is an issue that has to do with strictly the security agency, and I think the security agency should come on this.
Right, and I guess, Mukhtar, this is a good excuse for me not to have to spray money. When I go to some of these parties, I say it's against the law. At this point, I'm not spraying. But, we've seen, most of these banks, declare bumper profits so far. So I'm wondering, is it on the back of, selling the naira, or commodification of the naira, by selling it to hawkers and also POS agents? This is why we see the banks having all that bumper profit.
No, Ladi, no. How much of these naira notes are outside and how much of these naira notes selling down out to the bottom lines of the bank? I don't think so. If you look at the bank profit, it's largely driven by a lot of things they've done. You see in the area in terms of trading, you see the banks in terms of giving out of loans. I think the bank profit, if you look at their balance sheet and you look at the result that have come out, was largely driven by their core indices. I mean, so I don't think those Naira notes you see outside had any role in playing in terms of making the banks profitable. I think this is largely profitable for individuals. I think so. It's largely profitable for individuals. And if you look at the bank results, you realize that they got a lot of profit through the non-income sector, that is in terms of transfer. So it is better for them to even put more emphasis on cashless than even doing giving out the physical note. For the physical note, I think it's majorly beneficiary to those bank staff that are involved in it, not necessarily to the bank.
Right, but I guess at the end of the day, the banks smile to the bank, regardless. But it seems this is a plus for the fintechs, more transactions for them.
I tell you the truth, it's the fintechs that really helped the rural banks, rural area. I think they seem to be those that are in line with the traders. They go right there and meet the traders in the market. Sometimes you go to the market now, there's a particular fintech company that seems to be the toast of every small business owner, or especially the informal sector. You have to give it to them, but again, that is why they were established, and that's why the POS terminals also were established. The difference between the fintech companies and the POS terminals is that the fintech companies are easily monitored by the CBN. CBN are able to monitor, put check and balances. Remember, some months ago, those companies were suspended. A lot of accounts were suspended. They did verification. They have to come back, re-verify them before they got they were back on that platform. So you see that the CBN is doing strict monitoring. But for the POS, I think the CBN have not been strict with their monitoring. You must know why the PBS came into this system just to manage little transactions, 5,000, 20,000. They were not supposed to do more than 100,000. I don't even think it's up to 100,000. But now you see that the POS, when you look at security agents coming after some POS operator, they've done transactions up to 6 million, giving cash up to 5 million, 500,000, 1 million. That's not what they were meant to do. I think the CBN also need to improve their regulatory of those POS operators. I think in terms of the POS operation, regulation is lacking. For the POS terminal, the fintech company, I think they have done very, very well. Kudos to them. They have really brought those financial inclusion, especially to business owners, small business owners. But they need to build the infrastructure so that they can penetrate deep into the rural areas. Right,
and sometimes I kind of admire the courage some of these POS operators have. I was driving past Lekki Phase 1 at some point, and I saw one of them just holding the cash. She was just holding it in her hand there, not afraid, right there in public. But, going by what is happening right now, what are you expecting for transactions, in this Yuletide season?
It's going to be tough, lad. It's going to be tough. I just pray we don't get to the situation we got some months ago with the last CBN management, where they caused cash crunch and a lot, especially the POS terminals, were taking advantage of individuals. I think the CBN need to act fast, because this is largely a period that is largely driven by cash, either in giving of cash or in transaction by cash. It's not a good time for the average Nigeria this festivity period, because they strive on cash. The security man wants people to just give him cash. I'm not talking about security men as far as the policemen. I'm talking about if you have security guards, they are looking for cash. If you have the laborers, people that work in, they want cash. They don't want this money transacted into their account. They just want to use it and buy something for the festivity period. And those constitute over 150 million Nigerians. And if you look at that and by the informal sector, it's not going to be a good Christmas for them. I think the CBN have to come in fast and make sure they address this cash scarcity, especially because of the common man that depend on cash during this festivity period, traveling from Lagos to their rural areas. Most of these road transport operators do not have POS for them to transit. They tell you they want their cash, because when they get to one rural area to purchase PMS, they don't do transaction. And again, the confidence in terms of transaction is still very, very low, especially when you look at failed transaction, delivery or not delivery. So all these are challenges that the CBN have not really come out to partner. I think that is what they should be doing before they fully say, look, you must begin to implement cashless. So it's really a tough time. I strongly believe that the CBN will definitely step in and bring sanity to this issue. All
right, hopefully. But let's pivot now. What are you expecting for the markets this week? That's the stock market. We know it was a positive week, a positive outing last week. So this is the week before Christmas. What are you seeing?
Laddie, Santa came to the market very early last year. Normally, this is when we see Santa, but Santa came to the market early, and hopefully Santa will be in the market. Normally, this is the time that you see a little bit of turnaround in the market, because whatever retail investor, whatever they need for the festivity period, they've already taken it out in the first and second week of December. And so January is beginning to experience some bullish runs in the market. So, but like I say, Santa came early. Hopefully, Santa will still remember. One thing I'm certain is going to be an interesting 2025 for the market. A lot of things are going to happen, and I think we'll start seeing that plan out towards the last week of the month of December and the last week of the year. For this week, I'm not so optimistic, and like I said, Santa came early. Ordinarily, I should be optimistic now. But again, you never can tell. It's the stock market. Since Santa came early, hopefully Santa will be there till the end of the year. And if Santa is in the market till the end of the year, then you are going to really see a very bullish first quarter of 2025. Because remember, that's the quarter why the earnings seasons are coming, why the dividend payment for virtually over 90% of the companies that are listed in the exchange. So, Laddie, I think Santa came early, and hopefully Santa will still be there till the close of the year.
Yeah, we'll definitely watch out for that. And talking about Santa coming early, looks like it's early on the particular stock, Golden Guinea Breweries. That's up about 40% last week. It was also up the previous week. What's happening?
I think, Laddie, I try to find out what is happening, but I just think it's a bandwagon effect. We are looking at a sector that is largely driven by Nigerian brewery, largely driven by Guinness. We have not gotten any market information that what is moving Golden Guinness at the moment, because again, if you look at the numbers that have been coming out from that stock, it's not that it's very, very impressive. But I think investors are beginning to look at the penny nature of that stock, especially going through the festivity period when you see those volume price going. And I think it's a very volatile stock. But then it's a stock for investors that are risk takers are putting their finger. But if you look at the fundamentals, you are not so much knowing, you don't see so much there, and you don't know what is driving it. But like the market begin to unfold, but I think it has an issue to do with the pricing nature, the pennies nature of that stock. Nigerian Brewery just listing, they don't get approval to list their right issue allotment. So definitely, and then most investors are beginning to look at that sector. And again, Laddie, it's festivity period. That could just be the game changer for Golden Guinness.
Right. I guess people might be expected to drink more this period. Thank you so much, Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Finance with Mukhtar. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, lad.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we head straight to the oil and gas industry. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Well, let's get a check on the oil market now. We see oil futures ease from their highest levels in weeks as traders they're taking profit while waiting for a meeting of Federal Reserve later this week for indication of further rate cuts. Falls were limited, however, by concerns of supply disruptions in the event of more U.S. sanctions on major suppliers, Russia and Iran. Brent crude futures, that was down about 0.3%, $74.28 a barrel. WTI still manages to stay above that $70 psychological level, also down 0.4% in early Asian trade today. The Fed is expected to cut rates by a quarter of a percentage point at its December 17th to 18th meeting, which will also provide an updated outlook on how much further Fed officials think they will reduce rates in 2025 and perhaps in 2026. All right, we're going to join a live coverage now. That's for our viewers on DSTV. That's the Adamawa State 2025 budget presentation. But this goes on other platforms. All right, to other matters now. Dangote Refinery has exported premium motor spirit to other African countries, including Angola, Ghana, South Africa, in the past few weeks. The Vice President of the Oil and Gas Dangote Industries Limited, Devakuma Edwin, discloses while playing host to a delegation from Japanese business community in Nigeria, led by Japan's ambassador designate to Nigeria, Suzuki Hideo. The company's spokesman, Anthony Chejina, confirmed this, says that products from the refinery meet international standards already being exported globally. He also reiterates that the company's diesel has gone all over the world, and jet fuel is being heavily exported to European markets. Well, joining us now is Mr. Jide Pratt, Chief Operating Officer and Country Manager of Trade Grid. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, laddie. How are you?
I'm fine. So I guess this is the moment, we've been waiting for, saying that Nigeria should refine its own products and, by extension, export refined products. Talk to me about the implications of the Dangote refinery exporting, to these other African countries at this time. Is this the moment we've all been waiting for?
Okay, so first and foremost, compliment of the season, laddie.
Compliment.
I think it's extremely important to note this. We saw this coming. You don't build a single train refinery, which is the largest in the world, with a high Nelson complexity index, and then not sell to the world. It doesn't make sense. What the Dangote refinery has been able to do is that, obviously, as they keep on ramping up production and capacity, we're going to get to a stage where the products that they refine won't be, let me say, in excess supply to Nigeria. So what do? You begin to foray into markets, first within the West African sub-region, Sub-Saharan Africa, and this has started. Let's also remember that they've been selling jet fuel for quite a while into Europe through companies like Withdrawal and Trafigura. It's a good thing for Nigeria. It's a great thing for the refinery. So Cameroon is off the list now, Angola, Ghana, and South Africa. And I do hope they can sustain this over a long period of time. But a major plus for the refinery and, I dare say, for Nigeria as well.
Quality standards and certifications that ensure, the exported PMS meets, international requirements. Break it down for us. What exactly do they look out for?
So what it is, you remember when the refinery started, there was a statement around the fact that Euro V standards is where they had gotten to. Now, what this means is that ideally, if you have a refinery and the best grade in terms of certification is what we call Euro V, if you can get that, then what it means is that anybody looking for quality, you're the first right of refusal, in my opinion. They've been able to achieve that. A lot of, let me say, brouhaha when they started around the quality, that has been proven otherwise. So it does mean that if I'm looking for quality, if I'm within the African sub-region in terms of freight, it makes sense to be able to shorten my turnaround. Go where the quality is best. Price is a different conversation. Go where the freight advantage is positive in my advantage as well. I take that off as well. So we're seeing more and more as the quality is becoming better and better and better. If you do compare to where you were getting before and the quality standards are much better, then that's where you would go. If the freight turnaround time again is shorter, that is where you would go. So what we see now is that countries within Africa are looking for where they can get sustainable supply over a period of time, high quality grades. If you drove into some stations in, let's say, places like Ghana, you'd see that they have what you call leaded, premium unleaded. So they have different grades in terms of quality. These are things that help Africa coming out of that refinery, and I think that's what a lot of people are looking for.
Right, and looking at most of these African countries, when you compare their PMS price per liter with that of Nigeria, we see some of them are mostly more expensive. What do you think this does for pricing, in these African countries?
So it's two things. Don't forget, we've talked about freight very, very quickly. If the freight distance is actually shorter, then you're at an advantage in these other African countries in terms of better pricing. Let's not also forget that the deeper your draft is, so every time you can bring in a larger vessel, you have more efficiencies. Most of these African countries do not have a large draft or a deep draft. So they have to try and, let me say, multiple handling. So you move from a big vessel to a small vessel to a smaller vessel, just to be able to come into your draft. When this happens, you're handling so many different charges, and that is what lifts most of the prices across West Africa. What this does for the Dangote refinery and for them is that the first things first, it reduces distance in terms of freight. Imagine coming in from Europe on a large vessel, getting to Africa, doing an STS offshore Lomé, going in with a smaller vessel into your location. Some of these depots are also so small that they can't take a full cargo. So it's now a case of discharge into tank. If you discharge into tank, you wait till the tank is full, move into another tank. Buying from the refinery is two things. And again, I must re-emphasize freight. Once the freight advantage is there, they might also be able to take in smaller vessels into just offshore the refinery and then go straight into their channels. So it does help them. But I think one thing we must also say is that what does this do for Nigeria? We used to be a net importer for so long. So begin to look at the balance of payments. The refinery is earning US dollars. While she has some foreign debts to pay in terms of US dollars, don't forget that she's also going to process some of these transactions through her local banks. So it does mean that that paucity of FX is also something that begins to fade. The more transactions they do, the more US dollar transactions they do and export, then technically more inflows for Nigeria.
Right, and looking at the whole pricing drama in Nigeria for PMS, is there a risk that prices might stay? But these countries importing Dangote's fuel might actually ability to sell cheaper. Is there a risk with that?
I'm not so sure it's a risk. I think it's more of a balance. So look at it this way. If the Dangote refinery decides that I want to sell X amount of PMS, this is my X refinery cost. If they sell that product, it should go to say that the closest place is Nigeria. So back to this freight we're talking about, the same way the freight advantage should work for a country in West Africa that used to buy from Europe, is the same way that freight advantage ideally should work for Nigerian coastal waters. So it should suffice to say that if I'm going to Calabar, if I'm going to Port Harcourt from Ekpe, efficiency-wise, than going into Ghana, because that's the farther distance. So I don't think it's a risk. I think it's more of a balance, deciding what they want to do. And then it becomes very, very clear that the market becomes Lomé. So they look at what is happening around Lomé, which used to be the hub of most of the West African trades. It's basically moving to places like Ekpe. If you hear things like Gongo is able to shut down a refinery because they're no longer profitable, it does mean it's not a risk again, Ladi, but it's a balance. It should always be cheaper, freight advantage-wise, to be able to sell to proximities closer to you than chartering a vessel to go outside. So right. I don't think it will be a risk.
Well, as long as I pay cheaper than most of these other countries for PMS, I'll be okay with that. But what are the potential, political implications of Nigeria becoming a major fuel exporter in the region?
Again, Ladi, who should become a major fuel exporter?
That's Nigeria. Major fuel exporter. What's the implications?
Without a doubt, Ladi. I mean, back to what we're saying, the refinery 1,000 barrels a day. She hasn't hit full capacity. What a refinery would always do is that refinery, will, as long as she has crude, will always process, crack into distillates. And of course, we're going to become a net exporter. If they don't get crude locally, they'll to bring in crude and then also have them. Yes, we will become a net exporter.
All right, fantastic. Looking out for that. Thank you so much. That was Jide Pratt, Chief Operating Officer, Country Manager of Trade Grid. I call him JP. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ladi. Cheers.
All right. So, the markets are open right now, right here in Lagos, Nigeria. We'll give you the sun by 1 p.m. But that's it for me on Business Morning. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. I hand things back to the Sunrise Daily team.
Yes, no, welcome. Once again, really The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare welcomes these guests to his office at the ministry's headquarters in Abuja. These are representatives of organizations that are keen to invest and enhance in-country manufacturing in Nigeria's healthcare sector, a development the minister applauds.
With regard to medical equipment and particular ultrasound, when he discussed with me, you also mentioned it to me, and we had several conversations. We're very pleased because we're in the midst of expanding our primary healthcare system. More than 8,800 units. We're expanding CMONC facilities, 774. We will provide obstetric services. What we want is to have the retail outlets for health delivery, where there's a physical location, there are health workers, they are equipped, they are trained, and there are commodities. And on the affordability, we have an insurance program that allows folks to be able to access it. Simple.
This is one of those milestone events and activities that we don't see often, that from our side, it's a sign also, I hope, that you can see of confidence in Nigeria, but also in the Nigerian government, in your office.
After the landmark investment deals are signed, the national coordinator of the Presidential Healthcare Value Chain Unlocking Program outlines the expected outcomes.
Siemens is also looking to localize the production of ultrasound machines. They will be producing ultrasound machines at least 1,000 per annum at the beginning, and will increase this significantly over the next few years. Today, we've signed 2 MOUs. The first one is with Abbott Diagnostics to actually set up operations locally to produce test kits for HIV, for malaria, for other STIs and other diseases that we call point-of-care diagnostics.
It is expected that these deals, which commence implementation immediately, would contribute thousands of jobs and new revenues towards the growth of the Nigerian economy.
Well, quite a lot to mull over in the health sector. We did see in the dailies this morning that 32 states had to spend about 22 trillion naira in 2025. That's how much they're projecting that they will be able to earn and also spend. The question is, how much of that is going to go into the health sector? Well, somebody who is also very concerned about health, particularly primary health, is in our studios this morning. Dr. Mui Aino is the Executive Director, Chief Executive Officer of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, the NPHCDA. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning, Maupe. It's my pleasure to be here.
Indeed. Well, I'm looking at, just some of the things that have happened in the last couple of months, some of them maybe just as recent as a few weeks back, and quite an ambition, it would seem, that the country now has, trying to expand from 8,800 primary healthcare centers that we currently have to 17,600 within the next 4 years. And you hope to collaborate with states on this, that's correct?
Absolutely. I think the way the health system works, as you're probably aware, is that the federal government is responsible for policy and guidelines at the ministry level. The National Primary Health Care also develops the primary health system. However, the delivery of services, so the hiring of health workers, operation of health facilities at the primary health care level, really sits at the subnational level, the state and the LGA. So, of course, we do have to work very closely with them as we hope to develop. Now, as of today, there are about 8,400 primary health centers across the country.
Not 8,800.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 8,800, but there are certain wards that have become inaccessible over the last several years, so they've been sort of decommissioned. So the idea is to move to 8,800 fully functional and then double the number, over the next 2 to 3 years to 17,600. And we have already started to record progress in that. Of course, the first step in there was really to mobilize the resources and to identify how we prioritize, because you cannot go everywhere at the same time. So you have to prioritize. So what we did was to figure out where were the biggest gaps in each state. Where are the women lacking access the most? Where are the children unable to get basic services the most? And we have identified them and worked with the states to do that, of course. And the federal government has already, recorded about 301 or so that have been completely revitalized. Revitalization meaning the infrastructure is there, the equipment is there, the health workers are there. Incremental. There was a baseline of just under 2,000 out of these 8,000 400 that met the bar of good quality services. So in fulfilling the president's promise to Nigerians, we're really moving in that direction.
Sorry, come again with that number. You said you're just about how many of them that met
so
the standard?
when we started about a year ago, out of the 8,406 precisely, just about 20%, so under 2,000 actually, that you could point to and say they could very clearly and safely provide basic services to women and children and men in Nigeria.
So the rest were just buildings? Was that what they were?
No, they're functional, but they had gaps. Sometimes they didn't have enough health workers. Sometimes the equipment were old or obsolete. Sometimes the buildings, they didn't have accommodation. One of the things that we found, for example, is that in rural areas, it was very important to have a residence for the health workers, for their own safety, but so that the facility can work round the clock. One of the other gaps that we saw was empowering. So in many places, the cost of electricity, the cost of diesel meant that the facilities could not work overnight. And as you know, if you take maternal care, for example, many labors happen at night. So one of the things we're having to do is to put backup power, so solarization in this facility. So when we say fully functional, it is the facility that has all of these things so that you can be guaranteed 24-hour high-quality service by qualified health workers. So all of the facilities have some of this, but there are also, many were lacking in some of the areas, and that's the gap that we're filling.
We do know that a few years back, this was also the priority of the Ministry of Health. You are parastatal under the Ministry of Health. But
that is correct.
At one point in time, the Ministry of Health as a whole was concerned about this. I think it was under the time of Professor Isaac Adewale, who was saying that the federal government was going to build one primary healthcare facility in each local government of the country. I don't know, what became of that particular plan. Was the ministry able to do that?
I think the objective or the goal of having a functional primary health center per ward, not local government, which is why I think you would say about 8,800 or 8,900, because that is the number of political wards that we have, has been, in the mind of the government for quite a while. What's happened, though, is that that's very costly. It takes a lot of resourcing. And while there was progress, in previous governments, I think we're fortunate under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that with his goodwill and with the leadership of the coordinating minister, Mohammed Ali Pate, we actually are concretely able to get the resources this time. So I can tell you, for example, that across the states over the next year, facilities that have been, where BOQs have been done, bills of quantity to say the gaps where the states will be using World Bank resources, facilitated by the government to do, are in the order of 2,500 additional facilities. The federal government, we're right now in the process of, again, I said we have counted 301 that between us and partners have been done over the last 6 months or so. There's another 310 that we have commissioned that the contractors are in the field. They're fixing them now. They're putting the solar boreholes, they're putting the solar power, they're putting the residents and the equipment for the health workers. So because we are now able to mobilize the resources, it's still going to be a journey. We're not going to finish overnight, but I think there's concrete progress towards actually actualizing that. And like I said, beyond the one per word, because the president promised that Nigerians that he wants to guarantee access to basic services in a quality and trusted way to every Nigerian, wherever they are. So even beyond the 8,400, when we have gotten them fully functional, we're doubling the number to 17,600 so that in even underserved areas, it comes closer to the people. Of course, the buildings are easy. The equipment, those are resources, but the minister is also leading an effort to increase the number and quality of health workers.
Okay.
We have trained 53,000 health workers.
We'll come to that shortly, but I just wanted to quickly ask you how you're going to, because this is now a priority for the federal government.
Yes.
And the federal government has put this front and center. You've talked about the drive of the coordinating Minister of Health. However, how are you going to persuade state governments that this should also be a matter of national priority for them? Because it is where their interests lie, that's where their budgets will go. How are you getting them to come on board with the idea that this is actually a good place for them to spend their money?
Very good question, Maupe. I think, again, we're fortunate that with the foresight of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he had initiated and signed a compact with all of the 36 states and the FCT and even our major development partners. Just about a year ago, I believe it was December 13th of 2023, which sort of kicked off the Nigeria Health Sector Renewal Investment Program. All of the states, the federal government, the coordinating minister for health are signed to an agreement of sorts that says, you know, we're going to move together towards revitalizing or improving the quality of primary healthcare. So this initiative is being implemented through a sector-wide approach. And what that means really is that with the oversight or guidance of the Federal Ministry of Health, all of the players in the health sector, especially in primary healthcare, are working in a coordinated way. We have one plan. So what you've talked about, revitalizing 17,600 PHCs, all of the states are bought into that. These PHCs are in the states, in the local governments. They are not at the federal level. So the states are bought into that, and they're working. They're working. Many states have already used their own resources to hire staff, but also to fix these PHCs and procure equipment. We're also doing what we're using one budget. So really looking at all of the resources, you know, in addition, in accordance with the the National Health Act of 2014, really saying, what does the federal government bring to the table? What do the state governments bring to the table? What do the local governments bring to the table in terms of resources? But also our development partners. You know, a lot of them already support us with substantial amount of funding, but over $3 billion in addition was committed at the launch of the swap last year, and a lot of that money is already being realized. I spoke to some of what the states are currently using for their PHCs now. So everybody is bought into this. We have these periodic engagements. Just about a month ago, 2 months ago actually, we had the first joint annual review, which is the one conversation where all of the states came together to say, these are the objectives we set. How are we doing? Where are we making progress? Where are we not making progress? And we all went back to re-strategize, to say where there are gaps, where can we accelerate? So I think we are fortunate that the states are signed to this compact and they're really taking it very seriously.
Let me quickly go to Lagos now. I know that Ayo has questions for you.
Thank you, Mark. One of the issues that we raised earlier this morning, sir, is the issue of malnutrition in the northern part of Nigeria, northeast and northwest, to be precise. It's right there on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Well, I know it may not be your direct, call, but I'm just wondering how you think that might affect the activities of your organization, the agency that you work with. One is wondering, we're talking about primary health and all, there's always been that conversation around whether or not there is significant collaboration with or activities on the part of the subnationals, the states in particular, and of course, maybe by extension, the local governments. So the scare is quite out there. I don't know how you want to, if you have any reaction to that.
Yes, in fact, I do. I think you touch on a very important point to Nigerians, but also to the government. When the compact was being signed last year, the president had identified a number of priorities, which is what we will be focusing on as all of the stakeholders. Nutrition was one of them. You know, the reduction of stunting, is a big part of them, because I think the president recognizes the importance of good nutrition, especially early in life, to the development of human capital and the ability of people to achieve their potential. So in fact, one of the things that the minister has focused on, and the vice president actually, in fact, the vice president leads a task force on nutrition that pulls in, that's multi-sectoral, pulls in health, pulls in agriculture, pulls in women affairs, puts in all of the other relevant ministries to try to, one, mobilize the resources to really drive towards nutrition, including improving agricultural productivity, improving the technology that farmers can use locally to improve the quality of produce. But when you then come to health, one of the things that we are doing, again, this is domiciled primarily in the Ministry of Health, but we're all working together as one sector, is the minister has mobilized millions and millions of dollars through our resources, through, by reprogramming previously existing resources, but bringing in new resources to identify those critical elements that target pregnant women, because nutrition in utero, while in the belly, is so important to the formation of the brain, So we are procuring and distributing directly nutritional products, again, in collaboration with our states, to pregnant women, but also to children. We are expanding the number of nutrition treatment centers among the PHCs. So it used to be that select PHCs are where you can actually access nutritional services. We're really working together with all of the stakeholders to access that very, very rapidly. So just to say that nutrition is an important issue, and we're tackling that head on and hoping that, trusting actually, that Nigerians will start to feel the impact of all of this very soon.
Well, what is interesting, Dr. Aina, is why acute malnutrition is kind of on the rise in the north. Looking at that story, when I checked it out earlier, it says that the reason is because of low food consumption, and both in terms of quality and quantity. So the question that came to my mind right there was, it's not a problem of production, it's a problem of consumption. So what do you think could be playing out here?
I haven't read the article, but if I'm interpreting what you're saying, I doubt that the food will be there, but the people will refuse to eat it. So if people are not consuming food, presumably it's because there's not enough that is accessible to them, either because we're not producing enough or the little we're producing is priced out of their range, which speaks to all of the issues. And there are a number of myriad of factors, many of them outside the health sector, but again, they're within the purview of the government. There are the issues of rising poverty, given, that we have seen over the last several years that this government is trying to tackle head on by really addressing some of those macroeconomic considerations that actually impact the economy of the individual. Those I think everyone's aware of them, but also the things I spoke about that the vice president is leading nationally, but also that the minister is leading within the health sector to, one, improve the production of high nutrient foods, but also make them more affordable, or in fact free, at least for a while, to alleviate the immediate shortages and crunches for some of the most vulnerable within our populations, which are the pregnant women and the children.
I find that interesting, Dr. Aina, and maybe something a little comical that I found in the news this morning as well is that there's been a rise in the demand for tea and akara in Kano in particular. I don't know why that is. You want to speak to it, but there is something that we have talked about on this program so many times, and that is the issue of collaboration between the federal government and the subnationals. What are the tasks you are having in that regard? Primary health, we are told, is the purview of the local government, but here is the federal government doing something about it. Clearly, it would be difficult, if not impossible, to achieve anything without interface with the state government. So how is that going? What are the challenges that arise as a result of that, and what needs to be done?
Thank you. I think it is important to clarify that all the tiers of government and even non-government, non-state actors do have a role to play, important roles to play in primary health care. At the federal level, ours is the resource mobilization, the guidelines, the policies, and some sort of standardization and regulation, if you will, of primary health center, development of it, human resourcing, knowledge generation, and basically, setting standards and guiding the subnational units. At the state level and the local governments is where the service delivery actually does happen. Now, that said, the federal government does sometimes have interventions to fill gaps. We have the midwifery service scheme where we are directly hiring and deploying some midwives and skilled birth attendants to fill gaps, just to support the states, because while they are pushing, all hands need to be on deck. And the National Health Act actually supports the primary health care under one roof, which means the states, manage a fund which is contributed to by the federal government, by the state government, by the local government authorities. In the implementation of services, there are also things that the local governments do, primarily around the community-based service delivery, and things like that. But everybody does, in fact, have a role. So to your question about how are we making that happen, I spoke about the compact that was signed, a year ago. But I think there are some specific things that we then also do. Through the sector-wide approach that we're taking to implement the health sector renewal investment program, we do have quarterly reviews with the states where we sit in one room with all of the 36 states and the Federal Ministry of Health and NPHCDA and NHIA and other parastatals to say, look, again, what did we set for ourselves as goals? What are we doing well in? What are the challenges? And where do we need to step up? Beneath that, we also do have accountability frameworks that we work towards. There are certain incentives that the federal government gives to the states as well. Some of them, the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, for example, that is largely funded by the federal government that goes through the states to the facilities. Some of that for health workers, to hiring health workers and things like that. We tie it to some performance things around accountability, around service delivery. And as we're transitioning next year to even a reformed form of that program, we're even improving the acuity, of the performance management. So I think we have I would say we've had a good relationship with the states, and we're really moving together in the same direction to improve primary healthcare services.
Dr. just one last question from here. Tell us about the sustainability strategy for this initiative that you're talking about, because it will seem like one government in, one fantastic initiative, and then after that, we're back to square one.
In fact, the ideal of the SWAP program is, in fact, to make it more sustainable. So what it does is to align around a government agenda. When you think about how to sustain a program, what are you really talking about? It's one, who's going to do it, in the long term, and two, who's going to finance it, because we have one budget now where all of the resources coming from the partners, all of the resources coming from the government are put on the table and aligned around a set of priorities. We're not trying to solve everything at the same time, but we have a few core priorities that we believe touch the most Nigerians. That allows us to have a vision through an annual operational plan to what our needs really are. We know what we can fulfill today. We know what we need to plan for next year as a government. And what that is doing is, if you look at the year-on-year government budgeting at the federal level, and I believe if you look in the states, you will probably see similar for health, it's increasing multifold, at least when you look in Naira terms. It's because we now have this visibility through the annual operational plans. So for me, that's a key part of sustainability.
And I think it helps a great deal now that there is this primary healthcare leadership challenge, which we understand the Anambra state government came first in, and I think states like a little competition, So what was the criteria for this? So for states who were competing, and what were you looking? Were you involved in those who were marking the states, and was there any politics around it?
Was I involved in those who were marking? No, we had an independent judging panel to evaluate the scores. But, the primary healthcare leadership challenge is really a partnership between the Nigerian Governors Forum, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, the Federal Ministry of Health, and some of our partners, primarily UNICEF, Dangote Foundation, and the Bill Gates Foundation, who fund the awards. And the idea was really to galvanize the states to implement the Seattle Declaration of 2019, which has some important leadership actions that we believe impact the performance of primary healthcare systems. So financing, is the state budgeting? Are they releasing money for PHC? Is the governor personally, or his close designate, the deputy governor, personally involved in certain PHC activities, supervision of PHC interventions, engagement with traditional leaders? Is there an annual operational plan at the state level that guides where the budget goes to. Things like that we find impacted. And we have the state self-report. The way it works is you have the state self-report, and then we have an independent verification agent, some third-party private sector entity that is hired, not even by the government, but by a partner to go and verify the data. And that's then corrected, and the states are judged. It's in its second year now. We just had the second award. For the first award, it focused on these leadership objectives only. For the second award, we also included certain indicators from the compact that I spoke to earlier, just to align things better. And the result is what we saw. Anambra came first nationally, and there's money. There was $6.1 million, I believe, in total that was shared across the 13 winners.
Well, they got a princely $700,000 from that. Is that going to be cash, or is that in investments, further investment in primary health?
It's cash
facilities
to the state, but Anambra gets $700,000 for being first overall. But also they were the best in their zone, of course. So they also got, I believe, $500,000 for being that. There was one winner in each zone and the first runner-up in each zone that got $400,000 also. So there were in all about 13 cash prizes, and then one state, Gombe, also won a prize for doing some innovations that were most impressive, in the course of the year. So the funds will go to the state, but there are parameters around what the state can do with it, and it's really around investing it in their PHC system. Now, what they do with it in their primary healthcare system is really up to them. They can decide to hire workers, they can decide to refurbish their facilities, they can decide to buy commodities. That's up to them.
Well, congratulations to Anambra State, and we're looking forward to seeing concrete results, in overall, health indicators as the years go by. We have to thank you very much, Dr. Muya, for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. We certainly will be catching up with you much later in the new year, hopefully, seeing how much progress has been made in the primary healthcare sector in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Maupe. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's where we have to leave the program this morning. It's been an interesting Monday morning talking about ECOWAS and now healthcare delivery in Nigeria. If you have any opinion on any of these things, or you'd like to ask a question, by all means, use the handles that we have posted so far, Sunrise Daily Now for X, and then Sunrise Daily at channelstv.com. We have to thank you very much for watching this beautiful Monday morning, and we wish you a very productive week ahead. I'm Maupe Ogunyusuf.
Well, we've got your message, Professor Enachena, and thank you so much for sending them as well as others. Amaya Makinedu, have a wonderful rest of your day and a beautiful, productive week.